Pat Riley had some stuff to say about Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler allegedly had some stuff to say about his future with the Miami Heat this summer, which, by the way, I'm going to let y'all know right now, first 20 seconds. If somebody in the national media reports on the Miami Heat, it's speculation. We're not going to get into the ins and outs of that, but I will just say, I'll explain it. Jimmy Butler wants an extension from the Miami Heat, right? And I think he deserves one. The way that extension will work, though, is it'll be 2 years, but it'll basically, as Ethan Skolnick put it, rip up one of the years. So it's kind of just an extra year with some extra money. And Pat Riley in his press conference today said basically that's a big commitment to make to somebody, not knowing when they're going to play and when they're not going to play. Fair. I'm fully behind both sides, but Frankie, I kind of want to know where you stand on it.
Yeah, man. When I heard about it, I was a little alarmed about the extension because, like you said, Jimmy isn't always available, and he's like since he's been with the Heat, he's been guaranteed to miss at least 15 games. I believe it's been every season, and he's only getting older. He's about to go to he's about to be 35 next season, and
Mhm.
but when Ethan and Anthony Chang of the Miami Herald explained that it would essentially be waiving the player option he has now and just an extra year with some extra money. I'm more okay with it. I do get Pat being annoyed and upset because it's hard to build. It's already hard to build in this a good team now, but with all the new CBA rules and the second apron stuff, the Heat have a lot of decisions. And Jimmy, first and foremost, you want to take care of your stars, your Hall of Fame player, your franchise player. So I understand that. Like I get both sides, like you said. Like I feel like Jimmy Jimmy does need to take the regular season a little bit more serious because I feel like they've slipped in that sense of the Heat culture aspect of it. But I also feel like Pat has to do a little bit better building the team around him. It's been too many moves around the margins and not enough stuff that'll get him over the top. Partly due to Jimmy wanting Kyle, and that was a move. I mean, I know I hear Giancarlo Navas of Miami Heat beat in my ear. They couldn't do anything else because they were over the cap. I understand. But that was their big move that they've done so far. They've since moved on from Kyle with Terry Rozier, who's a nice player, but he's not taking the difference between a good team and a championship team.
So I think the Heat are kind of in a position where they're stuck regardless. I think because, well, as far as major moves go, at this point, I feel like if they were going to do it, it should have been a year or two ago. Because now, so I've seen a lot of fans of the Miami Heat and they're kind of pushing for a big trade to be done, right? And it makes total sense because you just watched the team. I don't want to say get lucky last season, but they made a Cinderella run last season. And granted, they wasted a full summer trying to get Dame Lillard. Understandably so. He said he wanted to go there, but it ended up not working out. They should have probably pulled out sooner. The summer before, they wasted a summer chasing after Kevin Durant, and that was also a swing and a miss. I respect the swing, but it was a miss. But now, if you're to make a big trade at this stage of where they are, due to Jimmy Butler's age, you're kind of and the roster the way it is, you're kind of choosing between Jimmy's timeline and Bam's timeline. You're not in a place anymore where it's both, right? Because a couple years ago, Jimmy's 31, 32, fine. But now he's 35. And when players start to just try to get an extra year or maybe even an extra 2 years, that's kind of signaling that they're just trying to get as much money as they can before they go ahead and retire. So as sad as it'll make us be to face it, Jimmy Butler seems like he's kind of just planning for his life after the NBA. And so the Heat are in a very tough situation because if you are looking to win now and you're going to have to figure out somebody older to fit with Jimmy's timeline, like I said. But the thing is, you did that already with the Kyle Lowry move. They made that whole offseason. They also picked up PJ Tucker that summer. Like I said, chasing after Kevin Durant, chasing after Dan Lillard. They've kind of exhausted a bunch of options. I understand they didn't always result in an actual deal being done. Even with Terry Rozier being 30 years old, they've kind of exhausted options fitting Jimmy's timeline, and nothing's really worked. Whether it was a deal actually being done, and understanding that Kyle Lowry he wasn't going to be productive that whole contract.
Right.
And we knew that.
And they knew that too. They've leaked it before that they knew the third year was going to be the problem, which was this season. But that's the thing. When it's an expiring contract, it's a lot easier to move. So all they had to do was attach it first, and they got Terry Rozier, who's a good starting quality point guard.
A little younger.
Yeah, younger, and he still has I think he still has 2 more years after this, so they have him under control. They have limited assets. They don't have many first-round picks to trade. They have a first and a second this draft at the 15th and 45th pick. They have young guys. The problem with the Heat is that they have young guys like they're very much like, if they like a player, they feel good about a player, they never want to move them. Mm-hmm. If they don't, they'll move them. That they're more expendable, and other teams know that. Other teams are like, yo, what's wrong with him? Why are you giving him up? I know, you never give up these guys that easy if they're worth something, and that's been the truth. That's why a lot of players, once they leave the Miami Heat, they suffer through they're on the decline. Like, I think Kelly Olynyk is the only one that's had any bit of an uptick after that, and that's been, Kelly's one of the most versatile Jones Jr. in a sense. Yeah, Derrick Jones Jr. too. But those are like 2 names out of all the guys. Max Strus has had a good season. But you look at Kendrick Nunn, you look at Josh Richardson, you look at Justice Winslow, all these other guys that had all these high prospects and high hopes, and just been disappointing, because the Heat know if there's a little bit of Heat magic in the Heat culture and the buy-in about the details, but there's also, the Heat don't let go of anybody that they really feel is worth a damn for them.
Right.
Like, everybody they let go is usually a replaceable guy in their minds.
And as far as irreplaceable guys, we know, look, they were saying Bam Adebayo was going to be the face of the franchise before he was even getting real minutes. So he's not going anywhere. And the thing I thought about today is, over the past couple seasons, I was always on the side of, look, Bam is a 5. It is what it is. In the modern NBA, Bam Adebayo is a 5. You don't need a big next to him. Just have a big enough, strong enough 4 who can shoot, and kind of have that dynamic. And we saw it work with PJ Tucker. We saw it work with Jay Crowder. The thing with that, though, is somewhere around every 5 years, the league completely changes. And so now you have a Wemby you have to deal with. Congrats to him on his Rookie of the Year. You have this Rudy Gobert resurgence you have to deal with out in Minnesota. We'll talk about them later. You have Jokic still the best player in the league. Embiid still the best player in the league. We're entering an era now where the 6'9" switchable center may end up just not being as valuable. But Bam Adebayo himself is very valuable. So they're probably going to have to end up trying to figure out a 2-man lineup in some sense. But the issue with that is Bam just now started to shoot threes, and he's okay with making them, but he's not necessarily so efficiently making them. And there aren't a lot of 7-foot guys knocking down threes and protecting the paint around the basket. You could look at a Brook Lopez, but he's older and he's just not himself anymore. And so you're going to end up having to go young in some sense again. You're probably going to have to draft one. And so that kind of leans you more towards into having to focus on Bam Adebayo's timeline. And I understand that, and the Heat are going to have to do something just off the sheer strength of they have to choose between Caleb Martin and Haywood Highsmith, first of all. And some dominoes are going to have to fall. As much as I like the roster that they had, I don't know if that roster is going to work as well next year. For the reason I just explained, they are small in a league that's getting a lot bigger. So they have a lot to figure out, but I just don't know if they'll be able to, just to be completely honest with you. So I'm not saying they should move on from Jimmy. both sides have said that's not happening.
Yeah.
Jimmy's agent came out and refuted the claims, and agents never do that if they have any interest in negotiating anything. It's like Jimmy wants to stay. It is what it is.
So Jimmy's under contract for 2 more years.
Yeah.
Like it's not for next season. It's not something like Paul George is in the news now because they're trying to give him less than the max, and he says he's going to test free agency if that's the case. It's not an issue. Yeah, it just came out like right before we started.
Indiana got money.
Yeah, I'm saying Philly. I think he's going to Philly or Orlando maybe. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think that it's a case of that. Like, I don't see it getting that bad to where Jimmy asks for a trade or they have to trade Jimmy. I think it's most likely going to be three. They have 3 big contracts. Besides Jimmy and Bam, it's going to be Tyler, Terry, and Duncan. You have to get under they're barely under the second apron, and that's not even including if they re-sign Haywood or Caleb at a bigger number. So that's that's possible that they get right up there. So I think they're going to try to maneuver some of those guys. I think they don't need a star. They definitely need an infusion of offensive talent and two-way guys, especially we talked about this at length all year, but they didn't have a two-way lineup. There was no lineup where they could get 5 guys that were a good offensive fit and could defend their asses off on the other end. So that's something they have to build towards. And it's difficult because Jimmy and Bam, like you mentioned about Bam shooting, but Jimmy's not a good shooter either, or not a respected shooter. So that limits their off-ball effectiveness, and that hampers them and puts a lot of pressure on the other 3 guys to be plus shooters, plus defenders, and have size as well. So they have to be creative. They have assets to maneuver around, not a ton, not as much as other teams, but I still think they can get some stuff done. And I just think they have to be aggressive and look for, I really like Nikola Jokic. He's 6'11", showed a lot of positive growth this year on both ends. I think he's a piece to keep. I want to see him play summer league and hopefully he gets picked for Team Serbia. But he's the ideal perfect fit next to Bam, size-wise, skill-wise. Shot 40% this year from 3 on a good volume. Want him to continue working on that, make sure that's a consistent shot and reliable shot. Work on his in-between game and continue to work and polish up defensively, because he was a definitive positive on that end. And guarding 5s, guarding 4s, they were trying to hunt him on switches, and he held his own for the most part in the second half of the season. I want to continue seeing that growth and see what they add in the draft. I think they need to be smart, but they need to be aggressive. Because like you said, it's Bam's timeline. I still think they can. I still want them to go a real shot with Jimmy. But this is also Bam's timeline. You're also trying to prove that what you have is worth him wanting to stay and recruit other players for.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the two-way lineup thing, because that's another thing. The league is changing now. You can't have a specialist out there really. When you look at the better teams now, everybody in most lineups can defend, and if not score flat out, at least shoot. And so now with the Miami Heat, they have these guys who will be either not even great offensive players, but productive enough offensive players, but they can't defend. And then you'll have the defenders who are just learning how to shoot. I just again don't know how that's gonna look moving forward in a league where teams are loading up on two-way guys. You look at the Celtics. You look at the
two-way guys with size.
Yeah, two-way guys with size. It's just they're going to have to figure some stuff out. They're going to have to make some real maneuvers. And like you said, like I've been saying, it doesn't have to be a star. We saw with the Phoenix Suns what that looks like also. So they're going to have to figure something out, man. They're going to have to kind of get with the times in a sense, because like I said, the league really over the past year, but especially this year, changed.
Yeah.
You need size and you need guys who can play both sides of the floor. And I don't know if the Heat have a real avenue to get that done this offseason because they do have limited assets. But I will say it's time to figure something out.
I don't even think like a lot, Donovan Mitchell is obviously the big name on Heat Twitter right now.
Mhm.
And I really like Donovan. I just don't know how there's a feasible way Miami can outbid other teams. So like I get it. I'm okay with including anybody but Bam and Jimmy for Donovan.
Yeah.
I know it's hotly debated on Heat Twitter, but
it shouldn't be.
He's that level of talent, and like you don't have the assets to build around that. You're not going to get somebody better. If you could get Donovan early, you do it, and you figure out the rest.
Yeah.
But because it's somebody 27, Bam's age, Bam's timeline, you have somebody there. When Jimmy's extension would be up, you have the cap space to add and build, and you have 2 years to build the rest of the team around. But also, but mostly, like I look at Minnesota. Minnesota was a very good team. Obviously, the Rudy trade really helped the culture. Chris Finch as well. But I think the biggest trade that they made was D'Angelo Russell for Mike Conley and Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
Yeah.
That a lot of guys, Mike Conley's at his age, you can make a very easy argument that D'Angelo is a better player. But Mike Conley's still a better two-way player, better fit. And allowed the other guys to grow, and you got a two-way role player. That's the kind of trades where like it's not you're not clamoring it. This isn't like your fantasy team. You might not be super hyped about it, but like trading that one guy for two guys, that's where I think they have to try to like see about creativity. Pick up a two-way guy for Duncan or. And a pick or something like that, whatever they can whatever's out there and they can maneuver. That's where they have to get creative, and we've seen them do that before. It's been a while since we've seen them do like heavy trades like that for role players, but if you're our age, you remember after them falling short in 2005, they went after they traded their third best player Eddie Jones and a bunch of their role players, and they got Jason Williams, Antoine Walker, James Posey in one trade. That was two starters and their sixth, seventh man, whatever you want to call it, Posey that year. But that's what we were expecting coming off a finals run last year, and they fell short because of the Dame stuff. But I think they really can't ignore their needs, and fitting around their two best players is the most important thing.
Yeah, and man, like Kelly Oubre was right there. Nickeil Alexander-Walker was right there. But you do have to chase after Dame in that case. When he says your name, you do have to chase after him. So I'm not too mad at him for it. But
I was just bad because they didn't move on to plan B faster.
Yeah, like once the team says they don't like your package, you haven't even presented one yet, just let it go.
Yeah, they were playing hardball. Like I understand, like other fans still don't think that Heat package was appealing. I think it was compatible with what they.
It was better than what they got.
Yeah, like I get it, but like you didn't even get to go to really negotiate. Like Cronin wanted them to make the best offer right off the bat, and like that's not how negotiations go. You lowball, you discuss, you try to meet in the middle. They didn't return calls. Whatever, it's done. They should have moved on from there. They can't rely on other GMs to comply and do their jobs for them. They have to figure shit out on their own.
Yeah, but man, they have a summer where they kind of have to. Caleb Martin didn't become the player that a lot of people kind of thought he would this season. They weren't healthy, so that's a lot of it too. It's just a lot. But I don't think they need to do this big upheaval of the roster, but they do have to make some changes. Pat Riley said he's open to that, but we'll see what happens with it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Playoff Out. Look, I know it's been a long time. We have crazy schedules, and it's kind of a miracle that we're able to do this at all. Like, trust me, our schedules are insane. But we do appreciate you for sticking with us. Nobody unsubscribed somehow. I would have probably unsubscribed, to be honest with you. But make sure you subscribe if you are new here. We're going to just go ahead and get right into the Wolves. not Wolves yet. We're gonna get into the Knicks and Pacers. Much better game tonight than I expected, to be completely honest with you. The Knicks have just kind of looked, I don't want to say dominant, but kind of dominant in a sense. Where the hell did this Josh Hart come from?
Man,
I don't know. But
he's fun.
You shouldn't be rebounding like that at 6'4". And he's making all the big shots now. This team in general, and I'm so glad. I'm too young to have really cared about that Heat Knicks rivalry, and I can just appreciate this Knicks team for what it is. That's a fun team. That's a fun team, and I don't mean fun in the usual sense of they'll throw some lobs and lose by 30. No, it's like that's a legitimately really good team. Isaiah Hartenstein, I've been watching since he was in the G League. I wanted my team to pick him up. They're still not using his passing to its potential. That dude is an incredible passer, an incredible playmaking hub. But that's just not the way they run their offense, but it's working, so it's cool. When you have Jalen Brunson, right now 36.6 points per game in the playoffs, 8.6 assists, give him the ball. But, man, they just got done. I don't want to use the word punking the Sixers, but they kind of punked the Sixers. When you look at the offensive rebounds and all that stuff, they kind of punked them. Huge credit to Tyrese Maxey for making that leap into what I would consider going to next year. He's pretty close to superstar. I think when you do that in the playoffs, it's you're kind of right there.
Yeah.
But before I even go further into this next team, what have you seen from them?
Man, they make everyone else look like OV hoes. Shout out to Kendrick. They, like you talked about punking them. They did the same shit to Cleveland last year. Had Jared Allen talking about the lights too bright. But they showed Philly. Like, granted, Philly put up a great fight with an injured Embiid that clearly wasn't 100%.
His leg was bleeding. Like
the Bell's palsy, the limping, all the stuff that he just didn't look right. Put up a valiant performance. A lot of dirty, questionable plays as well. But yeah, like you said, Maxey put up a hell of a fight. Tobias Harris, where were you, brother? But yeah, like the Knicks, they're so damn resilient. This group of guys, you talk about the Villanova guys, Brunson, Hart, DiVincenzo. DiVincenzo's turned into such a sniper, bro.
Yeah.
He that was a huge question mark early in his career. I remember the first year, look, I just pulled it up. First year, 26%. Second year, 33%. This was when he was playing with Giannis in Milwaukee. He was getting open looks. Just couldn't knock him down. And he's turned into a 40% shooter on 8.7 attempts per game. Like,
it's insane.
Consistency, just confidence. And that's over the last 3 years. Like, it's been rising, 36%, 39% with Golden State. And then this year it's peaking on the most attempts. And he's come up huge for them. Hit the big shot tonight for the big three to go up 118, 115. And I believe that was the final difference right there. But they have been battle tested all year. You know, we've talked at length over the last decade about Thibs minutes, but it's true in the playoffs you shorten the rotation, and these guys are all ready to play. These guys are conditioned to play. Brunson at 44 minutes tonight did not lose a step. He was still hitting shots, 14 of 14 from the line, only 4 turnovers on 26 and had 26 field goal attempts. Like, he had the ball plenty and took care of it for the most part. Josh Hart just, using his body, but out rebounding, out hustling guys. 24, 13, and 8 tonight. Like, 3 steals, 1 block as well. Like, they just bust their ass, man. OG's been an outstanding fit for them. You mentioned Hartenstein, just toughness, do the dirty work, has no fear about anything. And, they have a great core group of guys, and they battle. They play for each other, and they compete their asses off.
But you know what? That's another example of a team we just talked about in the last segment, that the two-way players everywhere. And even if you look at Jalen Brunson's point of attack defense not necessarily being there, he is near the top of the league in charges. And I understand that's just a counting stat, but it's kind of not, because it gives, and I said this on previous episodes, it gives smaller players a chance at protecting the basket. And so it still takes the same type of help defense and awareness and all these different things to still make you a threat on that end. And so, yeah, you may be able to blow by him, but then you still have to deal with OG Anunoby, by the way. But OG Anunoby, you still got, as a helper, you still got to deal, well, at the nail, you still got to deal with, if it's not him, it's Josh Hart. If it's not either one of them, it's Dante DiVincenzo. And then you may have Mitchell Robinson on the back line. You may have Isaiah Hartenstein on the back line. This, again, like a team full of two-way players. And this is just where the NBA is now. Two-way players and size. I'm fully comfortable now saying it's no longer about just switchability. I think, I'm not sure which team changed it. It may be the Nuggets, but not really, because they didn't have all the two-way aspect of it. Maybe the Wolves this season, even though some teams did have it already, or maybe the Celtics the season before. But I think it was the Celtics. But now it's two-way and half size, basically. And the Knicks have that. And I will give credit to the Pacers, though, because I fully expected the Knicks to just kind of brush them off and punk them. But the Pacers put up a fight tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would say the Nuggets last year, because Jokic picked up his defense,
He did pick up his defense,
and he's been. We'll get to him later, but like his defense has not been up to par from what it was last year. But Aaron Gordon, KCP, those guys were super glue two-way guys for them. Even Porter picked it up. They had Bruce Brown, Jeff Green, and Peyton Watts. Christian Braun, Christian Braun were all big two-way guys. Like they didn't have weaknesses on the floor. And you look at Boston this year, they don't really have any. Everybody is a two-way guy. Yeah, like it's just been about that. Like teams are making salary decisions and having to make tough choices and going for two-way role players instead of a little bit more talent. And I think that's the what the league is looking like. And we, credit to Indiana, man, for this fight tonight. Siakam was sensational.
And he has been all playoffs. Not a good one, but he has good credit. Yeah.
He's just been a superb fit. They had growing pains. They've had a lot of injuries. We talk about Haliburton's injury that's affected him most of the year. And he looks like a shell of himself, less than a shell of himself, sadly. Horrible performance tonight, like complete disappearance. Just could not get going. And credit to the Knicks, DiVincenzo and Hart did a phenomenal job on him, really making him uncomfortable denying the ball. But that's also a credit to them. I was talking to one of my mutuals about this. Like early on in the season, they were so highly dependent on Haliburton.
Yeah.
And like his on-off numbers were ridiculous. And then when he got injured, the rest and they picked up Siakam around the same time. They kind of had to like learn how to, survive without 100% Hallie. And they've grown. Andrew Nembhard has turned into a great two-way role player for them. Can handle the ball, can run the offense, can play off the ball. Aaron Nesmith, he's freaking awesome protecting the rim. And
I'm so glad to see him break out.
Dude,
I liked him in Boston.
I liked him. He was one of the guys I liked coming out of the draft, and because he was a shooter with length and a great team defender, and he's turned into a rim protector at times for them. And Miles Turner's always been a good player, really finding his own there, competing out there, spacing the floor, pick and pop. Obi Toppin, talk about that. The East Bay.
Oh man, he was getting booed in there. He's like, because Obi Toppin is one of those players, and we talk about this sometimes also. Sometimes you get drafted into a situation that doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
And he was behind Julius Randle, and he was just never going to get the opportunity. Granted, he's shooting the ball better than he ever has in his life this season. So he improved, and I'm not going to blame the Knicks, because like you play the player who's there at the moment, not who he's going to be. But man, credit to him and we've talked about him before too, but just his improvement, because there were times where he just didn't look like an NBA player.
Yeah.
So man, but yeah, for him to be getting booed in the Garden and pull the East Bay off in game is just fucking hilarious.
Man, he's been like you said, improving on the 3-point shot, just solidifying it, and career high 40%, extremely athletic, moving off the ball. Brought an extra dynamic athlete to Indiana. Started a lot of games for them, but also keeps the energy off the bench. Is a spark. Has the dunks, runs the floor hard, and get is a spark plug like that. Like we talked about Derrick Jones, like a similar player in that respect. And when they run in transition, you got to find them. Otherwise, that they're gonna get an easy dunk out there. But being able to play in the half court, 3-pointers, cutting, moving the ball well as a connector. TJ McConnell, who's is there a better backup point guard than TJ McConnell? Like he's just been sensational all season.
He's been one of the better backup point guards in the league for a few years now.
Yeah,
and I don't know why. Well, maybe it's because he's like a small white guy. He doesn't get the credit for it. But since he was in like Philadelphia, really,
yeah,
it's not necessarily numbers. It's not in the sense of 6th man of the year coming off scoring a bunch of points type backup, but it's the energy, the spark, the decision making, and just
craftiness.
The craftiness. Just I said energy already, but he shifts the game's momentum just in a Peyton Pritchard type way. And I'm not making that comparison because it is kind of lazy, but in a sense, like just bringing that energy, bringing that hustle. Like if your team is playing like kind of lazy and like they don't feel like being there, like we see teams do sometimes. 82 game season, it happens to everybody. Just throw TJ McConnell in
there. Yeah, he defends, he hustles, connects the offense. Doesn't shoot the ball really well. Like he shoots 40%, but it's 0.6 attempts. Like he barely shoots a 3. Lives inside the arc for the most part. And he just his drive games, like he's one of the league leaders in drives. 10 points, 5.5 assists in like 18 minutes. Like that's just production. That's just extreme production. You double that to per 36. That's a 20 and 10 player off the bench right there. And he's only averaging 1.5 turnovers. Like takes care of the ball, defends, averages well over a steal a game almost every year of his career. Pesky, and he's just annoying. He's just annoying to go against. Like fans hate DJ McConnell. He's so goddamn good. But no, full respect to him, and he's a big reason the Pacers have been able to hold on tight while Haliburton has had his injury struggles. But do you want to get into Haliburton?
Man, it's tough because I let it go, man. Like I've said before, he's my favorite player. Anthony Edwards is doing too much right now, man. I can't do it. But I do understand Tyrese Haliburton is injured, and it's unfortunate. He really shouldn't be playing through it because he just looks so bad. But he kind of has to. He knows how much his team needs him. But it's just kind of tough to watch sometimes because early in the season before the injuries, he was just as aggressive to score as he was to pass. And now he's just kind of not even looking at the basket sometimes.
Yeah.
And tonight, that's kind of what hurt him because, the Pacers bench was playing great. And shout out to Isaiah Jackson, hardly playing all playoffs, coming in and being real productive tonight. But there are times in a game, especially a playoff game, where you just need your star player to be the star. And I just don't know if Tyrese Haliburton's body is going to allow him to do that right now.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
And it's making us miss out because that battle of a healthy Jalen Brunson versus a healthy Tyrese Haliburton, I think the best 2 young point guards in the league right now, that would have been so incredible to see. But, man, it's just like Tyrese he just has to go and heal up somewhere.
Yeah, and I'm thinking long term too. Like he needs to sit out the Olympics.
Yeah.
Like I understand what an honor, and like he was one of the better players on the World Cup team. But man, he needs to sit down, get that rested up. A hamstring injury, like that's been lingering all season. Like you don't want to risk that. Like you need the rest, brother.
Yeah, man. And like I said, it's because he was doing such historic stuff at the beginning of the season. Where this is like, man, you don't want the long-term damage. So, unfortunately, because I do like the Pacers team, I don't see them making this a long series. So maybe he gets a little extra time to sit before the Olympics, but even still, I don't know, man. I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, if they get eliminated this round, maybe he heals up in time. But I would play it safe, honestly. If it was close, like the Team USA will be okay without Haliburton. Like they'll find somebody else. Like, but yeah, that like credit to Indiana. Like they made it a lot closer. Like you said, they a couple calls at the end of the game go their way. The kickball,
that was crazy.
That there's the moving screen they called on Turner at the end. Like there, a couple of those plays go Indiana's way that we might be talking about them taking that surprise win. But Carlisle's still a good coach. I expect them to come back ready and clean some of that stuff up. Like I'm hoping for a long series, but I still have the Knicks taking this one.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe Knicks in 5. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm hoping Knicks in 6 just for a longer series, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised Knicks in 5 either.
Did you ever expect the Denver Nuggets to just get smacked like that in their arena?
Man, no. Not even in a preseason game. No.
This is an elite defense. They had 35 at halftime.
Without Rudy.
Without Rudy Gobert. But it's all credit to, man, that Minnesota Timberwolves defense is insane. And the way they just had, well, I'm not going to say they. I'm going to specifically credit Nickeil Alexander-Walker and slow-mo. The way they had Jamal Murray bottled up, he was 1 for 10 from the field at one point. Like it was, and then Naz Reid down there, just kind of making Jokic look away. I don't think I've ever seen him look. It's that defense is insane, man. I'll predict it. Like if you're listening to this, it's the same day, but they're gonna announce Defensive Player of the Year. I'm pretty comfortable saying Gobert's going to win it. Now, maybe they'll give it to Wemby because of the spectacle of it and all that. I don't think – well, if you look at Bam, you would have to really be paying attention to just how bad the Heat defense was without him. But that's kind of all he has going for him. And the Heat's defense didn't really figure it out until the second half of the season.
Yeah. And Minnesota was like the number 1 defense like year round. The Heat, like I think they finished with like 5th or 6th with the late push. But yeah, I agree. Like I feel like Bam missed his time with the Jaren Jackson and Marcus Smart years. But I'm not mad if Rudy wins it.
Yeah, I think he deserves it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, same here. But like credit to the rest of the Wolves, Chris Finch and his staff. For being completely prepared and not afraid of Denver. Jaden McDaniels, 6'9" guy, just throwing his length out there, getting skinny around screens. You mentioned slow-mo, but Cat had a great defensive game. Conley's always smart. Ant is physical and a lot smarter and strong. But yeah, Naz and Nickeil, bro, they busted their ass, bro. They had like pretty much a 7-man rotation tonight without Rudy, and they balled out. They frustrated Jokic. Jokic. I'm always gonna do that. Jokic -16, 4 turnovers. He just looked sloppy, and they attacked him on the other end and made him look like a shell of himself through 2 games. Jokic is averaging 5.5 turnovers, and he's a -28.
That's insane. This is the best player in the league. like like we're not the people who let recency bias get to us. Like, this is the best player in the NBA looking like this. And it's all credit to the Timberwolves defense. There was a point in time in that second quarter to where it was just pure dominant. Like, it was bad. And you realize Anthony Edwards was on the bench during this run. And he even hadn't gotten going yet. And so it's just like, and shout out to Tim Connolly because he put together this Nuggets team and then he went over to Minnesota and he made the Rudy Gobert trade that, man, you want to talk about like shutting people up.
Yeah, me too. Me included.
Like, and I'm like, I didn't have any hot takes at the time because I'm not the hot take person, but 5 draft picks for Rudy Gobert, like what his reputation was at the time of this guy who gets played off the floor in the playoffs, quote unquote. But again, a lot of it is the league changing around again, and it's kind of beneficial to that type of player now. But man, what a gamble to take and to just hit the jackpot on. Because nobody, like, I wasn't high on Rudy Gobert. I just felt like he kind of got a bad rap based on his team in Utah's lack of perimeter defenders and the responsibility he had. I just felt like he was out of position a lot of times on defense because he had to be. Mm-hmm. But I did not expect this in Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a lot of people did. Just the growth of Anthony Edwards and Cat. Credit to them too. Like, yeah, it starts with them first of all. Yeah. Like, it has to start with them. But
neither one of them were defenders before.
Exactly, but also finding like the right role players in a Jaden McDaniels, and in Nikhil Alexander-Walker. Like they moved on from D'Angelo Russell to get those two guys, and Conley's been an outstanding pro. Like he's always like we had the episode with Molly. I almost called her Monique. That's why I was like, that's not her name.
White woman's name Monique is crazy.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, we had the episode about the grit and grind Grizzlies and with Molly talking about Mike Conley, and just always knowing how to play off the ball, just always knowing how to get his guys involved, take his shots when they're there, and be a pest on defense. And he's been exactly what this team needed, and bring the veteran leadership as well. Slow-mo, outstanding connector on offense, moves the ball, attacks in transition, can attack you in different areas, inside of the paint, can hit a spot-up shot, as well as defend multiple positions, uses his length well, hit ahead passes in transition to get his guys out and running. And like those are stuff like, that's not always going to show up on the box score, but stuff like that really engages your team in the connection. Like if you miss the hit ahead pass, that would have been an easy 2 points. Like that's a little deflating for your team right there. And that's you're late or you throw it off the mark, let the defense recover. That's a huge momentum swing. And they have guys who are smart at making all those plays and valuing those plays. And they've done a tremendous job. Like complete credit to them, how they built this team. And man, like they look like the championship favorite to me.
Yeah, tonight. Oh, for sure. Like if they took 2 games in Denver.
Yeah.
Like, they're up 2-0. Like, and they're going back to Minnesota to a crowd that has not seen much. This is the best Minnesota team. Like, I'm comfortable saying. Like, I remember the 04 Timberwolves. That was a great team. They're not fucking with the 2024 Timberwolves. So going into that crowd with a chance to go to the conference finals for the first time since 2004, and you're not running up against Kobe and Shaq's Lakers this time around. You're running up against probably OKC, who I'm not going to discredit. They're also a very good team, but the Minnesota Timberwolves have a real path to the finals now. Up 2-0 against like the not to like reference the Kendrick Lamar stuff again, but like against the boogeyman who like you're up 2-0 against like the juggernaut.
Yeah.
You get past them, you're on your way to the finals, I think. But it's interesting you talked about some of the players they picked up. And I had also thought about this recently when I was thinking about how the league is changing now, and it's no longer about just getting the stars. It's important for teams to look for players who come from good organizations, right? Because when you look at Kyle Anderson, for example, where did he start off at? San Antonio. And I understand the San Antonio Spurs haven't been this winning team is because they decided to rebuild, though. They still have probably the best coach in the NBA. I understand his record recently doesn't show it, but again, that's kind of by design in a sense. When you look at DeJounte Murray and what he started doing in Atlanta when Trae Young went out, he comes from San Antonio. Teams stood in general, and this is what worked for Minnesota, not just talented players, but intelligent, well-coached players. Yeah. That's the main thing, because now Chris Finch, his job is easy. Because when you think about who Rudy Gobert's coach was out in Utah. I mentioned Kyle Anderson coming up from under Pop. If I'm not mistaken, Nickeil Alexander-Walker had Woody Green's a good coach. Mm-hmm. Woody Green's a good coach. He wasn't there for the Stan Van Gundy thing was a disaster. I think he might have been there a little bit. But Stan Van Gundy's still a very good coach. That was just a bad situation for everybody. But
you're asking if Nickeil was there for Stan?
Yeah, I don't think he was, though.
No, he was.
Oh, yeah. Well, you go from Stan Van Gundy to Woody Green, and now you're going to this. Like, you've been taught well.
Yeah, and not to mention going to Utah and being, going with Quinn Snyder, then Will Hardy. Mm-hmm. And then going to now Chris Finch, like he's had great coaches, had like an up and down career as a rookie. Like Nickeil's been on quite a few teams already, but he's performed. Like he's a great role player, and that's what you need. You need glue guys. You need great role players to have a chance in the playoffs, because those guys, every championship team has role players that will win them games.
Yeah. And, man, you know what? I almost did the outro without talking about the most important person in this episode. Anthony Edwards is a superstar. Like, I'm not – for me, it's no longer upcoming. It's no longer future. He's here. In the playoffs, 32.2 points per game, 6.8 rebounds, 5.8 assists on – right now, the Timberwolves have the number one offense and defense in playoffs. That's before tonight. So – just again coming out, and granted, number one picks, and especially like him when it's a full-fledged, unquestionable number one pick, you could expect good results, but you also kind of can't, because a lot of those guys did flop. But I saw a scouting report on Anthony Edwards when he was coming into the league, and it reminded me of who he was at the time. It was just like he's a strong guard who can score, but he's a bad decision maker and he doesn't really defend and whatever. He plugged all those holes up.
Man, all the question marks about if he loves basketball. Like, come on, man. This guy absolutely loves playing. I think what Anthony Edwards loves the most is competing.
Yeah.
I think he is an absolute competitor. Like from the moment you saw he had with KD going back and forth, telling him I'm whooping your ass, yeah. Like and just being ready for the moment. Like this is his opportunity. He had a little bit last year. Got his feet wet. Got to see what it's like, and he's completely answered the bell on this postseason. Not to mention, the Wolves are undefeated, bro.
Yeah, 6-0 playoffs.
6-0 against Phoenix and Denver, two teams that a lot of people coming into the season and going into the playoffs thought were legitimate championship contenders. Mm-hmm. They took real good care of Phoenix, and they've done an insane job on Denver. Anthony leading the charge, playmaking. Seeing Anthony being in Minnesota, me living in Texas, I don't get to watch him play if he's not on national TV a lot. Mm-hmm. So when I watched him over the World Cup, and I was just watching like his decision making and stuff, I was like, man, this kid is good. Like he's talented, but he's still he still misses pockets. He still misses a couple plays where if he's a little bit more unselfish or be a little bit more aggressive, settling for the jumper too much, like he can make a difference. He's found that balance, and that balance is the difference between great and superstardom. And he's got all the talent in the world. Like the kid at 22 years old is as talented as anyone in the league, and just seeing what he is right now and what he might become, like, is scary. It is scary.
Yeah, but this is the scariest part. You mentioned the World Cup. The Olympics is this summer. He's going to be down there. And the USA is not bullshitting with this team this time. They have the LeBron. They have, I think, Steph is on that team, if I'm not mistaken. I think Joel Embiid signed up. He shouldn't play, though.
He shouldn't play. Him and Hallie need to rehab together.
But this is when players really get better every time. And now he's going to be down there in practice, working out in these scrimmages, those king of the court one-on-ones, 2-3 dribbles. He's going to be down there all summer with some of the best players that ever played a game, picking up on their knowledge also. Like Anthony Edwards being able to learn from LeBron James and their exposure for a summer. Like, next season is going to be crazy. So it's like, man, and I love seeing, because, look, when I talk about my experience watching the NBA, sometimes I may sound older than I am. I'm 31. That may be old to some people. It's still young, but I've been watching since I was a very young kid. So I've seen different eras of the game. I've seen a lot of changes, and I love it every time. That's why I keep bringing up this new thing of every team needing almost all two-way players in a pure big, because I'm excited when the league changes, and I'm excited when there's a passing of the torch and a changing of the guard. And we saw Steph Curry, KD, and LeBron. Steph Curry didn't get to the playoffs. KD and LeBron early first round exits. And I mentioned this on social media. The NBA has these commercials, which I love, to where it'll just be players' press conferences and they're bigging up a young player. There's one on Anthony Edwards. I think there may have been one on, I don't think Tyrese Haliburton, but Jalen Brunson, I think for sure has one.
Yeah.
The NBA understands it's a new era now. And, man, I just couldn't be more excited about it. And the best player in this era, you can say Luka. I understand with the numbers and all that stuff, but I think I'll go with Anthony Edwards, because there's two sides of the ball, and he's dominant on both. And he's 22 years old.
Yeah. I take Ant over Tatum. I feel like Tatum's that guy, that other up-and-coming, at least American player. And I was just thinking, Kenny, you mentioned Ant going down and learning in the Olympics and all this stuff. Could you imagine the shit talking in that practice if Ant goes in there with a championship?
Oh, man. Can you imagine? Like, you know what? I'm rooting for the Timberwolves to win it all. Not only for that, but because I'm fully invested in, and I hate what this word has become now, but I'm going to use it in the sense of when we were kids just watching the game as fans. I'm fully invested now in the legacy of Anthony Edwards. Mm-hmm. I want to see him. And the Timberwolves posted that picture of, like, I don't know if you saw it. It was like Kobe, Jordan, and Anthony Edwards. It was like there was Jordan, there was Kobe, and that was Anthony Edwards.
Yeah.
Even with me growing up in Miami, idolizing Dwayne Wade, I'm rooting for that to be the case. And I'm sure, and Dwayne Wade's like, he's sometimes too humble. I want him to talk some shit.
Yeah.
And remind me, that James Harden shit is so disrespectful. But that's beside the point. I'm fully invested in Anthony Edwards and watching Anthony Edwards become one of the best players the NBA has ever seen. Because there aren't many times where you can tell this early.
Yeah.
And, like, it's man, like, we watched LeBron. We watched LeBron's whole career. We knew it pretty early. I don't know if we've had that real feeling since. I really liked Derrick Rose. I feel like he could have probably got close, but the injuries happened. And unfortunately, the way he played and how athletic he was, you could have kind of predicted it, unfortunately. But I think Anthony Edwards is that good and will be that good. He has the attitude for it, and I want to watch as much of these steps as possible, and I'm rooting for it. So if he can get this championship out the way at 22 years old, I'm in. I'm in. So that's my rooting interest now in the playoffs.
Yeah, he has an insane amount of confidence.
Yeah.
That you need to be that great. And I think, like, I look at all they're like, we're blessed as fans of the NBA to have a lot of young, fun players, and we still get to watch the Currys, the Kevin Durant's, the LeBrons, still go at it. But we have, Jason Tatum, Tyrese Haliburton, Jalen Brunson, Anthony Edwards. We have a lot of young, fun guys to watch too. Wembayama, Giannis, Jokic, Luka, all these fun guys. But one thing they all have in common is confidence.
Yeah.
You need that elite confidence, that Kobe Bryant confidence, that Dwayne Wade confidence, Michael Jordan confidence, to the borderline cockiness about it. And Ant has that in droves. I feel like Ant has a confidence that I can't imagine a situation that would break him. The only thing I could kind of imagine is injuries that can humble you. And I hope that we're not talking about him in the future as a what if or anything like that. Hope he has a fully healthy career. Hate injuries taking that from us, but man, his confidence is special.
This is the thing, and I'm gonna wrap it up soon. I'm gonna make this quick point. I keep watching him get injured in games and just play better on the injuries.
He's got that LeBron effect.
Yeah. So it's like, man, we've talked all year about what can't this guy do, but I'm at a point now to where I'm ready to crown him as next, for real.
Yeah.
He has it. It's even beyond just what's on the floor. This is an it factor that you can see that I remember being a kid seeing in LeBron. I was a little later on, Kobe was kind of already it, but once him and Shaq started feuding, I was like, Shaq's getting older. Kobe has it. If they separate, Kobe's going to end up doing some shit. Well, I wasn't saying shit yet. I was 10 years old, but no, 12. But I was saying shit. I shouldn't have, though. But Kobe's going to end up doing some legendary shit if they separate. He has the room for it. And we've seen it happen. I don't know it. Like I said, I don't know if I've had that feeling since. I haven't with Anthony Edwards.
Yeah. Ant is out there telling them, he's looking around the league. He's looking at the Nuggets, looking them right in their face, and he's saying, they're not like us.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Playoff Foul. And thanks for bearing with us for all the time off. Like I said, we have crazy schedules. But I'm Kenny. You can find me on social media, Kenny Spence NBA. I don't care about that. Just make sure you subscribe to Playoff Foul. Frankie, where can they find you?
Frankie G _ on Twitter. Also follow Streambeat Pod on Twitter. We just dropped an episode talking about the NBA streaming rights with Amazon, Turner, what's next, what's expected. With Alex Musabai from Miami Heat Beat and my co-founder on Streambeat. Really enlightening episode. I learned a lot. Moose is really plugged into this shit. This is his passion. I've never heard Moose more passionate about anything.
If you like the music throughout, that's my brother Devin Spence. His Instagram is BlackGlowMusic. That said, we'll see y'all next time.